So chapter 5 in your textbook, we are in nonverbal messages. Last week we talked about verbal messages. This time we're talking about nonverbal messages. And this is something that every single one of us knows about. We're not learning anything new here, are we? When we study communication, we're not discovering something we've never done. It's not like math that you've never seen before, or accounting methods you're not familiar with. You've been communicating all your life. So this is not something you don't know. It's just something that we approach in a more organized scientific method, and we look at communication as an area of study, as an academic discipline, as a area that we can explore and systematize and understand. Because all of us are doing something, but we don't always understand, how it works. And so understanding how communication works makes us better communicators, okay? All of us drive cars. They get us places, we ride public transportation. Not everybody understands how those vehicles work, how the engines work and how everything. So studying communication is a lot like studying mechanics or something like that. And now you have been using it all your life, but now you actually understand how it works. And understanding how it works makes you better at it. Now you have more control over it. And that's what I'm hoping that will come out of this class, that you will have a higher degree of control, a greater mastery of communication, really, as a result of taking this class. So that's why we're studying all that is communication entails. Now, nonverbal messages. We have several objectives in this chapter. First, we're going to explain some of the principles in which nonverbal communication actually works. Like, what does it really mean, okay? Then we're going to talk about the channels, like how do we do it? What are the vehicles which we use to transmit our nonverbal messages? And then we'll look at some guidelines for improving our communication. So that's pretty much those three main objectives that we have for class today. So let's begin with the first objective. Let's look at the principles that identifies in which ways our nonverbal communication actually works, okay? And so when we communicate nonverbally, there are several things that we seek to achieve, all right? And we do communicate nonverbally all the time. So there's several things that we seek to achieve. And these are the ways in which what we say interacts with that which we do not say. See, nonverbal is something that you do not necessarily say. Well, you could say it, but there's not a lot of content to it, or something like that. Saying something like, yeah, that's not really saying a lot except confirmation. It could mean anything. It could be, yeah, I heard you, or yeah, I agree with you. Or, it could mean different things. So nonverbal messages that interact with whatever we're doing verbally, okay, these are the major ways. Accent. They accent your communication. So that means to accent your communication means to stress something, okay? For example, when I say, I want you to be strong, right? And I clench my fist like that. What am I doing? I'm accenting the message strong, strength, right, with a closed fist. Why? Because closed fist is something you grab onto, you hold on to it, right? You show strength, power, endurance, by a closed fist. So that's a symbol, essentially, which I use. You can also use it to compliment. When I say, I want you to be strong, and let's say you don't understand the word strong, but you understand the symbol of a clenched fist, all of a sudden, you're like, I'm not sure what the word strong means. That's a new one for me. I'm still learning English, but I know what a clenched fist means. It means strong, right? I know what a flexed muscle means. So when you see me gesture or motion that way, you intuitively interpret my words without even knowing what that word exactly means, and that's complimenting a message, right? So I'm complimenting now. Contradicting is the opposite, all right? If if I say, I want you to be weak, but I do this, right? With my fist, then I'm sending the opposite message, right? So then you understand I am not really, saying what you hear me saying. What I'm saying is what my gestures are saying. So there's a contradiction, and basically you have to make a choice. You have to make a call. What is my real messages? So you can contradict, you can motion with your hand, or you can gesture, whichever way, or even make an expression of face, facial expression that will change the meaning, okay? I mean, you may be saying one thing, but showing something else. And so you can accent or compliment, or you can sometimes contradict what you're saying with nonverbal behavior. You could seek to control, okay? Seeking to control, for example, is when we're having a conversation, right? And you're talking, and all of a sudden, I want to break in. So I make this motion like that, and you're like, oh, he wants to talk, right? So you're like, okay, so you give over the control of the conversation now to me, because you saw me kind of grasp for that moment to jump into a conversation, but I couldn't because you keep talking, and so I'm like, okay, he wants to talk, great. Or raise your hand in class. That means you want to be heard, right? So this is you trying to exert control, trying to show, I want to take over at this moment. So things like that. Also, you can choose to repeat things. For example, I will say things over and over and over and over. See what I'm doing with my hand? I'm repeating my communication by doing this gesture. Things like that. You can restate, you can repeat things with your gestures in the same way that you would do it with language. Only now it strengthens this. And you can also substitute. Substitute means replace your verbal communication with a nonverbal. So instead of me saying, now it's your turn to answer a question, I just go like that in class, and I point to you, and oh, he's calling on me. Instead of me saying, Sion, your turn to talk. I just go, point, right? And what I did is I replaced. Instead of saying your name, I just pointed the finger, right? Which some people would say is impolite. We're going to learn about this in our communication chapter. But the idea is I replaced what I would have said verbally with a gesture. And it works because you still understood what I meant without me actually saying a word, right? So I substituted. So that's substitution. So there are several ways in which we use our nonverbal communication to achieve the same exact goals, essentially, as our verbal communication. It's just a different way. All right? So, when we meet people, when we talk to them, when we interact with the world, our nonverbal behavior helps us to manage our impressions, okay? And this is, again, a very cultural topic. Keep in mind that this book is written, from a standpoint of a Western culture. So, in the nonverbal communication culture, how do you manage your impressions? What would you do to be liked? If you want to be liked, how would you behave? How would you behave non-verbally in order to be liked? What would you do? Give me an example. You walk into a room, you meet a bunch of people, you want them to like you, what do you do? Smile. There you go. Smile. Greet them, right? Nod. Shake. Whatever you got to do. But you're going to use some nonverbal behavior to show to everyone, hey, I'm friendly. I'm nice. I want you to like me. I don't want you to stay away from me. I want to have a communication with you. So you'd walk in and you'd say, hi, everyone, instead of you just walk in and kind of hide there in a corner and say, I'm just going to stand here and watch you. You guys do your thing, right? Like you see, you're going to be outgoing in some way, shape, or form. You're going to step out and say, all right, I want to have a relationship with you. So things like that, you know, there are things that you can do to be liked. There are things that you can do to be believed. For example, if you're speaking to a person and they have a hard time believing you, there are certain things that you can do, you know, with your gestures, right, with your body language, to communicate, hey, you can trust me, you know, versus choose not to communicate that, you know, to you can excuse failure. If you've done something wrong, you messed up, you can communicate with your body language. Hey, I feel bad, I feel sad, I feel sorry, you know, sorry I messed up, things like that. You know, you could say that with your body language. You can show that you need help, that you're helpless, that you need looking for some assistance. Again, with no words at all. Now, a lot of times we do that with words and no words, but what I'm saying is that there are certain gestures and behaviors that we do to show to people, hey, I need help. Or if you want to conceal your faults, conceal anything that you don't consider to be flattering about yourself, you can conceal your faults by doing that. You can show your leadership capacity and invite people to follow you by certain body behavior, okay? And people will actually recognize who a leader is in a room and follow a person based on their body behavior. And you can also confirm self-image or communicate it to others. So whatever image of yourself you have, or whatever image that you want people to have of you, you could choose to project it by using nonverbal communication, nonverbal body, facial, gesture behavior, okay? And these are all the things that we already do, okay? We already do those things without even realizing. Now, I realize from culture to culture, it changes. Okay, how people behave in public, you know, and in social situations can be different, but the idea is that we all do use some sort of nonverbal communication devices to get us there. So we also use nonverbal communication to help us to form relationships and maintain relationships. So we can communicate affection, support, love, non-verbally, right? We can do that. Think about it. Think about it for a second. We can communicate support and love and care, you know, to someone non-verbally. We do that. Or we can communicate the lack of such too. We can communicate that we're not happy. We communicate, you know, like imagine a couple that's mad at each other. They can be mad at each other and they don't even need to say anything, and the other one knows that the other person is mad at them. Okay? Nonverbal behavior. See, we do that. We do that. You can show that you're unhappy. You can show that you're angry. So you can communicate the kind of relationship you have with another person completely non-verbally. Are you close or are you not? Are you real close, like, you know, do you have an intimate relationship? Do you have a really close relationship? Or is your relationship more professional and distant like? You know, you can communicate that through body language. Again, things like that. So you can communicate your status of your relationship, your closeness to the person through behavior that is nonverbal, and that's what they call Tai Signs essentially. But you know, simple things like, you know, holding hands or hugging or even kissing publicly or something like that. You know, that can communicate very strong message, nonverbal. Hey, I am in an intimate relationship with this person because I'm comfortable being that close, and even showing it off in public, things like that. So in conversation as well, when we discuss things with other people, when we communicate with other people verbally, you can give people nonverbal cues. You can signal to them when you're ready to talk, or when it's their turn to talk, or they need to listen, things like that. You can use nonverbal language to communicate, hey, you know, this is how this is flowing. You regulate your relationship relationship, essentially, your conversational relationship, by using nonverbal cues. So whether it's turn taking or something like that, that's what you do. You can show to people that you're listening, or you can show to people that you're not listening. Also non-verbally, right? But you have to be careful that every time we communicate non-verbally, it is such a tricky thing. It can be, you can read it right or you can read it wrong. You can be deceived, is what I'm trying to say. You can misread sometimes what you think a person is trying to communicate non-verbally. So sometimes we miscommunicate non-verbally, sometimes we miscommunicate verbally. Sometimes verbally we say one thing and non-verbally we say something else. And sometimes that can be because we're unsure of what's going on, and sometimes we're confused ourselves. So we're human beings, things happen. And the same way, the person who's reading you, the person who's trying to understand you, they can misunderstand based on their ability or the lack of ability to understand what's going on. So we can trick people a lot of times, non-verbally, because we can create this zone of comfort where we really are not friendly at all, and vice versa. We can fake it, let's put it that way. We can fake it. Have you ever acted friendly and showed friendliness and kindness and good disposition towards a person you really did not like? It didn't really want to show them kindness, but you did it anyway. Externally, on the outside, it looked like you were okay. On the inside, you wanted to choke that person, or something like that, punch them in the gut. I'm just trying to say, like, have you ever done that? And this is the truth. The truth is that we do these things. Sometimes we deceive people non-verbally, while inside we have these other feelings. So you can't automatically believe that what person does non-verbally is 100% truth. Just like we can deceive with words, we can deceive non-verbally as well. Does that make sense? All right. This is what you and I already do. Again, this is not something new, something never heard of. All right? Now, nonverbal messages are very important because one of the most powerful things about nonverbal communication is they express our emotions. Okay? Our emotional state is most often expressed through nonverbal messages. We may feel sad, right? And we may not actually say it, but we can choose to show it. We may feel sick, just physically not feeling good. And we may not say anything to anybody in the room at all, but we can still show it, right? That's whatever state that we are in, a lot of times we choose to communicate non-verbally. So a lot of people who study human behavior notice that a very large amount of human emotional experience is reflected through nonverbal communication. That's why a lot of people, if they really want to know how somebody feels, they don't ask them, they just watch them, right? Because they will show it. Because you have to be very good about concealing how you feel, and some people are good at it, to conceal it. Other people are terrible. And again, a lot of that is a very cultural phenomenon. Some cultures are more into concealing how they feel. They don't want anyone to know how they feel. So they just look a certain way all the time. I think Asian culture a lot of times does this. A lot of Asians, whether you're from China, Japan, or Korea, tend to have a certain look. They don't want you to think that, hey, I'm happy, or no, I'm unhappy. It's just like, I'm neutral. I don't want you to see my happiness or unhappiness. I am in the middle. You decide how I feel, but I'm not going to tell you. Now, there's a certain strength to that, okay? Because if I'm negotiating a contract with you, I want to know when I give you something and you are very excited about it in a contract, right? We're making a deal. I give you a good price or I give you good terms and you're excited about it. So if you're emotional, you immediately show it, right? You're like, yeah, you respond positively. And I see that response and I'm like, great, I gave him something. Now, I have to take something away. Now I'm going to give them terms that are not going to be good. And I see their face goes down. So a person who shows their disposition, okay, visually, right away, is at a disadvantage. Versus a person who has an impassive face, who you can't tell if they're happy or unhappy. See, now you can't use that in negotiation with me because you can't tell if I'm pleased or displeased. So culturally speaking, for Americans, for example, it's very difficult to negotiate business deals with somebody from Asia. Why? Because they're not used to that. They're looking for the clues of whether a person is happy or unhappy, and they're not getting those clues, right? Because the person just looks the same all the time. They can't tell. So this is a very cultural behavior, and sometimes, you know, people use this to their advantage or disadvantage, even in things like business. So, nonverbal messages can help people communicate whether they're having a good time or a bad time, pleasant or unpleasant experience. Sometimes nonverbal behavior communicates to people something that they're not willing to communicate with words, okay? For example, I don't want to tell you that I don't like you and I don't want to be around you. I'm just going to show it to you by my nonverbal behavior. See, I can't be mean and I can't say it to you, but I'll show it to you and I'll let you figure it out and interpret it, because that way it's less offensive, right? Because if you get as far as me to having to tell you, then I am showing you disrespect by being negative towards you. So sometimes people do that. They let the nonverbal behavior speak for itself, sort of say, without having to say things out loud. All right? And you also can use your nonverbal behavior to hide your emotions. As I said, in Asian culture, there's this idea of an impassive face where you have this look that's neutral. You're not happy or unhappy. You're in the middle, and nobody can tell even if you are satisfied or unsatisfied. You know, you come to my office, I'm your boss, you ask for a promotion, you ask for a raise, and I give you a raise. But I can't tell if you're happy or unhappy. It could be maybe I gave you too little. All right? You said, I want, you know, $5 an hour more, and I gave you $3, and you're unhappy. You know, all of a sudden I can't tell because you're not showing it, right? So I don't know if I should change my mind and offer you more or not. You see what I mean? That's all of a sudden, I want to keep you happy as an employee. I like you. You're a great worker. You know, you do so much for my business. You come, you ask me for a raise. You say, I want $5 an hour more. And I say, how about $3? Now, if you smile at me or show me some sort of a pleasure sign, then I'm like, okay, great. He's happy. He's taking the $3 of promotion that he wants. Excellent. We're moving on, you know. But if you don't show me that, then I'm like, did I just offend him? Because he asked for $5, and I didn't give him $5. So now I'm thinking, he's my best worker, and you know, I didn't give him $5, but he asked me for $5. It's not really so much more. Maybe I should give him more. So now as a boss, I'm doubting myself. Why? It's all because you're not showing your emotion to me. You're not telling me how you feel. So you see how this is very important. You can use your nonverbal behavior to hide your emotions, and sometimes you can create quite a havoc for certain people. All right, so that's sort of say our first objectives. We talked about the very nature of what nonverbal behavior does, right? The question is the channels now. The second part of the chapter has to do with channels. What are the nonverbal channels of communication? Can you guys think off the top of your head of any channels? How do we communicate? Give me something. How do we non-verbally communicate? Give me channels What is a channel? When I use the word channel, obviously I use it idiomatically. We're not talking about streams of water running down the street. Right? Channels is a vehicle, a device, right? A way, a method. So how do we communicate non-verbally? Give me some examples.
Body communication.
Body. So standing. Standing too close, standing too far to somebody, holding somebody, hugging somebody. That communicates to everyone, right? So body is good. Anything else? Any specifics in our body maybe we also use? Think. Shaking hands, okay, good. So that's kind of cordial, yeah. Or give me some other examples. Come on, guys, you know this. Eye contact, thank you. Yeah, keep going. Give me others. Look what I'm doing. Hand motions, right? Smile on your face. The roll of the eyes. Or how about putting your head down on your desk? See, to me, that communicates, Professor, you're so boring, I can't take it anymore, I'm going to sleep. That's what it tells me, which could be untrue. It could be, hey, I'm feeling sick or something like that. But depending on my emotional state, I will interpret that, accordingly, however I feel. If I feel this way, then that's how I interpret it. So yeah, so there are different channels. So what are some of the body communication we use? There are emblems. There are illustrators. There are effect displays, regulators, and adapters. Now, think with me just for a second. What are emblems? When we mean emblems, what do we mean? Symbols. Thank you, very good. Yeah, that's symbols. So give an example of a symbol. Okay sign is a symbol. Excellent. So, but okay sign is kind of tricky. You saw that in the book. Different people mean different things by that from one culture to culture, right? It could mean pretty scary stuff sometimes. So yeah, that one is like, here's one that works in every culture. When you do that, that just means no, dislike, bad, whatever. It means something bad in any culture pretty much. Like universally, this does not mean good. That can mean different things. It could be good or it could be something offensive, It could be a bad gesture as well. So an emblems is something that we gesture with by folding our fingers a certain way or holding something a certain, a hand usually, and we communicate that way. Now, what is an illustrator? How do we illustrate something with our body? Illustrate something for me with your body.
Face.
Face. Face? Okay. So how would you illustrate a face without saying face? Say face without saying a word. Say face with your body. Illustrate it for me. Can you do that? I can. Watch this. What did I just say? I said face, right? What did I do? I simply outlined my face. Now you're not going to wonder what I said. You knew I was talking about my face, right? I just said face. Say box. Illustrate box. How would you illustrate box with your body? Try it. Thank you. You just draw a box with your fingers. That's what you do. You literally illustrate. How about this? I'm going to illustrate something. What does this do? Heart. Thank you. How did you know that? Because I drew it in the air, right? That's the idea. Okay? We can illustrate. Now, affect displays. We can show affection or the lack of affection through our body language, right? We already talked about it. I can tell you that I like you, or I can tell you that I don't like you, right? You can come and I can give you a hug, and that just shows a friendly disposition, right? In some cultures, that shows a level of intimacy, a level of closeness, so things like that. In other cultures, it means, in some cultures it means more, in some cultures it means less, all right? So you can move your face, you can frown, okay? You can put your face sad, you can show to me all sorts of things. Or you can do it with your hands, or you can do it with your body. And show me that, you're uncomfortable, you're tense. What is a regulator? What do you think a regulator is?
Control.
It's about control. So when you regulate something, you control it. So how do you control another person if you're having a nonverbal? How do you control somebody nonverbally? What do you do? Give me an example of controlling somebody nonverbally. You're having a conversation and you need to exert control in some way. How do you regulate it? Give me an example. Come on. Don't be shy. You guys know it.
Body action, like points.
Point, yes. Or how about this?
Stop.
Stop. Wait a minute. And I just go, a minute. Like somebody's talking to me and somebody comes up and interrupts and I go, wait a minute. Or like, wait. Like that. That means stop. Whatever you're doing, stop. So if I'm talking to somebody and somebody interrupts, I go, wait a minute. Or like that. And that tells them, I got you. I see that you want my attention. I'm not ignoring you, but give me a second. I'm going to finish this up, and I'm going to come back to you. See, we do that. We exert control. We regulate our conversation. We regulate our relationships in a nonverbal way. We do that. What about adapters? What are adapters? Adapters are silly things that we do sometimes. There are different types of adapters. Let's see. This is an adapter. No, this is actually an adapter, but I'm using it as an adapter. This is what we call a double entendre. This is an adapter, but I'm using an adapter. An adapter is something that you use to do something else, okay? In language, or in communication, or in speech, we use adapters. So me playing with an item, okay? I'm just playing with it. It serves no purpose. I'm not adapting anything except twisting it in my hands. Why am I twisting it with my hands as I'm talking to you? Because I feel like I need to. Because I have nervous energy, okay? And I need to play it. Some people play with a pen. Other people sit in class and they draw little pictures, right? Another person plays with their water bottle, takes off labels off their water bottle. Another person chews gum. We do these adapters, okay? These are our nonverbal things that we do. Sometimes it's just nervous energy, okay? It's just playing with something. Checking your phone every 5 seconds, see if anybody tweeted something, or like doing things like that. Like, these are all strange behaviors that we do. It's like scratching your head, or adjusting your hair, or moving your hat, or something like that. We do this all the time. We feel like we need it for whatever reason. And I'm sorry. These are called self-adapters. And then you can also do adapters to other people. All right? So, for example, if something is, let's say if you ate a donut this morning and you got powdered sugar on your face, and you and I meet in the hallway, I'll go like this, because I'm showing you that you got powdered sugar on your face. I'll go, clean it up, I'll do that without saying anything. And you're like, oh, there's stuff on my face. And you'll go clean it up, because you didn't know it. so sometimes we do these adapters to other people. Anyway, these are all ways that we, choose to communicate non-verbally. Now, one of the most advanced, I would say, ways of nonverbal communication is facial communication, okay? Because face is usually used to express feelings. Like I said, some cultures choose not to use their face to express feelings. They don't want you to know the feelings they have, so they hide them, okay? It makes them comfortable. That's okay. It's a very cultural thing to do. But other cultures are not like that. You could see exactly what's going on inside of them, written on their face. We say, it's written on your face, meaning you don't have to say anything, I see it. If you're happy, I see it. If you're unhappy, I see it. You can't hide it. Some people are really bad about hiding their emotions. They're on their face. Other people are very good at it. So now, this is a very interesting thing. People have studied this. Facial expressions and facial communication is so powerful, okay, that people believe that showing people certain facial expressions will actually influence their psychological state. All right? So here's the deal. If you're surrounded by people who show facial emotions to you that are positive, you will feel better. You will feel positive, even if in the beginning maybe you didn't feel so positive. If you're around people who show negative facial emotions, you will feel worse because you're surrounded by people who project all this negativity towards you. Okay? And that is, again, a psychological behavior. All right? People can get excited when they see that somebody else is excited. And vice versa. Now, this is very interesting because we are affected by the behavior of other people, nonverbal behavior. If we do something and we see a lot of people approve, we will actually feel good and do it again. If we do something and then we see on other people's faces they do not approve, we may stop it and not do it again. You see what I mean? The facial behavior of other people, the facial feedback, essentially, is a very interesting dynamic. So when a person feels, let's say, some sort of positive emotional feelings, love, attraction towards another person, and they show that with their body language and their face, then the other person may get those clues and also express attraction. But otherwise, they may not. So things like that. And as I said, this changes from culture to culture. So it makes intercultural communication infinitely more difficult. Eye communication is one of the biggest telltale signs. How much people look at each other makes a difference. So like, for example, in Western culture, we have limits. You can look a person in the eyes for a certain period of time. After certain time has passed, it becomes uncomfortable. So you're not supposed to look for, it's like these nonverbal things that we have where we say, all right, this is a long enough look, right? After that, it's considered inappropriate to look a person directly in the eye. So you take your eyes away. So not looking at the person at all also communicates something. Looking at the person too much also communicates something. Again, all of that is very much culture-driven, gender-driven, because women, for example, tend to look at the person in the eyes and tend to do it for a longer time. Men tend to do it for a shorter time. So some of it is gender-driven, some of it is culture-driven. If you grew up in a certain culture and this is acceptable or unacceptable behavior, then you fall into that mode because that is something that's comfortable to you and it's something that something, who you are. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's going to change from person to person. In some cultures, when something is happening, people choose not to pay attention to it, meaning they will not look at it. So, for example, somebody's, you're walking through a store and you see a parent trying to discipline their child. You don't stop and stare and look and watch them really closely. You give them privacy by choosing to not look at them, by ignoring them. Why? Because they're having a moment they're not exactly proud of. The parent is not happy he's having to discipline the child in public. And you do this out of courtesy. You say, it's there, it's happening right in front of me, but I'm choosing to ignore it. So I'm not going to look at it because I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. They're already uncomfortable with the fact that it's happening, okay? I'm not going to add to that discomfort, so I'm just going to take my eyes off. So sometimes we do this on purpose. We divert our eyes to something because we don't want to cause people distress or highlight certain attention that does not need to be highlighted. Socially, we do this all the time.